So up this way here, that leads back up to Route 79. And if you recall, kind of at the top of this run, I was at the intersections of 79 and Route 80. I went around that rotary, got us on Route 80, took a ride on Summerhill Road, and came down this way. So if we went back up that way, we would reconnect at Route 79. 79 runs north and south. And if we were heading south, which we are, we're going to go in a different direction though. We head toward the Connecticut shoreline. We're going to go this way, and we're going to follow a road called River Road. It's a nice road, secondary road. It's not as well paved as the road we just came down, because as I just mentioned, I don't think you can find a better piece of road to ride on your bike than the one we just came down in my area of Connecticut. That is super. I love that piece of road. One of the other things that I wanted to talk about this morning is my STRAVA app and my bike computer, which is a Sigma bike computer. It's not an expensive bike computer, and I bought it when I first started riding, primarily to keep track of my distances, and one of the side benefits I got was it keeps track of my average speed and things like that. It has an odometer on it. So anyway, when I first started using the STRAVA app, I was becoming more and more familiar with how it worked and all that kind of thing. But a while back I was riding, and I was checking my Sigma bike computer to see what sort of mileage that I had accumulated on a certain trip, and just out of coincidence I compared it to what Strava told me that I had ridden, and I was a bit surprised to find that the two numbers didn't agree. Strava was slightly less in terms of distance than the bike computer. So I looked into it a little bit more, or I kept track of it a little bit more, and what I'm finding was I lose 1/10 of a mile. Well, I don't lose, but there's 1/10 of a mile difference for every 10 miles I ride between what Strava records and what my bike computer records. And if you do the math on that, it's essentially 1 mile difference between my bike computer and the Strava app for every 100 miles that I ride. So when I discovered that, I'm thinking, oh man, did I screw up on how I set the wheel size on my bike computer? And I was a little concerned, I guess, that I was giving myself more credit than I deserved, because Strava said, no, you're not going that far, kid. Anyway, I mentioned earlier that take a right-hand turn here. I mentioned earlier that I'm on a few bicycling communities on Google Plus, and I brought the topic up kind of as I just described it. And of course you got the guys who have theories on why this is happening, as opposed to the guys who know what they're talking about. So I got a lot of people saying, oh, you must have screwed up on setting up your bike computer, blah blah blah. But in actuality, what the reason for it is very simple, is that Strava is a GPS system, and the GPS system is essentially drawing straight lines from point A to point B, and that's how it's doing its calculations. So as an example, here I'm going around a corner, right? Here I'm going around a corner. Strava may point my position across that corner in terms of small straight lines. In other words, not the whole curve that I'm making, but different segments. So that's really the reason behind it. And it makes absolute sense. And I kind of think that's kind of a cool thing to find out and learn about how it works. And you know, it makes sense. I mean, I don't know why I got tangled up in thinking, oh my gosh, something's wrong with my bike computer. But no, that's the answer. So I don't know if any of you other guys have kind of come across this with comparing your trip distance on Strava and your bike computer and wondering why they don't agree. That's the reason they don't agree. And you should know that your bike computer, if properly set up, is giving you the accurate recordings for at least distance, and I'm sure speed too. Whew. So this is River Road in Madison. We're kind of heading southeast. Still a pretty good road in terms of pavement. It's nice and smooth. Major drag here. I gotta be careful going through. I don't hear anybody coming. I don't see anybody coming. You know, the other thing that I liked about Strava is that well, one of the things I don't like about Strava is, you know, if you're trying to find friends or find other people who ride in your area, it would be great if Strava gave you a search capability to search geographically. Instead, they give you a name search, and you know, yeah, if you know the person's name you're looking for, sure, you can find them. But if you're looking for people in your area, and I understand at one time Strava had that feature, and maybe it got taken away for some reason, but that's one of the things I kind of thought I could use Strava for, which is to say, you know, look for other people to ride with in my area. So the closest I could come to that was finding a place like this to ride, and if it turns out that it's a well-known or popular place for a lot of guys to ride, and somebody somewhere along the line designates it as a segment, well, then you'll come across the names of people who have ridden this segment and what sort of performance they had riding it. And then once you find a person by name that has ridden the segment, then you got the option of following that person, or at least contacting them. But what I was looking for was And it might have been lazy on my part. I guess I was looking for someone to tell me where they ride, so that I also would know where to ride. But as you can tell, that hasn't slowed me down from finding places on my own to ride. I mentioned earlier that I rode this way on Easter Sunday, which was a couple days back, and that I kind of was riding into a little bit of a headwind. I think I've got the same situation today. Ever so slight, but does feel like I've got a headwind, and there's a couple leaves blowing on the street in front of me that I can tell from the direction they're coming. I'm riding into a headwind again. I mean, it's not the worst thing in the world, because as it turns out, when I rode Sunday, I rode down to the water, and I actually was by the water for a short time, and I actually got very cold, and it was nice to have a tailwind pushing me home and getting away from it. Always better to have a tailwind coming home. So anyway, going back to the STRAVA app. So I did find one or two people in my area. One that lives in Guilford, my hometown. A couple, 3 people from Madison, which is the next town over where we are now. And so they started following me, and I started following them. So wouldn't you know it, seems like I'm the only guy who's riding. The 4 people in this area, none of them have ridden in the last 2 weeks, so I don't know where they ride, how often they ride, how fast they ride. And one of the guys who started following me, I would guess is probably mid-30s, early 40s. I'm only saying that based on a small thumbnail picture that he posted of himself on his profile. The only activities he has on Strava are the ones that he records manually, and they're all about weightlifting of all things. He's doing chests, he's doing abdomen, he's doing leg exercises for an hour, sometimes 2 hours, 2 different segments a day, and he posts these things every day, and it has nothing to do with bicycling. So from the standpoint of my trying to expand my area of knowledge of where people ride and how often they ride, using the example of other people's activities, this guy is doing me no benefit whatsoever. So now I'm wondering, what's the protocol? Do I unfollow this guy and maybe offend him a little bit? I actually thought this morning, when I saw another series of his activities on weightlifting, that I would drop him a quick note and just say, listen, I notice you're really not a road biker, and that's the kind of people I want to follow, so if you don't mind, I'm not going to follow you anymore. And as I'm saying this to you guys, I'm thinking maybe one or two of you out there are going, what the hell do you care what the guy thinks? Well, I know the internet has no manners at all, but a guy my age, we were raised with manners. For those of you who don't know or I haven't mentioned it before, I'm 67 years old, and yeah, I'm from a different generation, guys. What can I tell you? So anyway, that's what I had to say about Strava this morning. And actually, I think the reason that guy, when I just mentioned, who does all the weightlifting on Strava and is following me, I think he's following me because I started following, which by the last name I presume is his wife, because his wife seems to be, at least I thought she was, a pretty active bike rider. So maybe when she found out that I was following her and she decided to follow me, he jumped on board to follow me, maybe to make sure that I wasn't following her too closely, if you know what I mean. Anyway, that's kind of how that all fell together. Yeah, we got about, well, we got a headwind anyway. It's not significant, but it's something. Something's coming up behind me. I knew it wasn't a car. But you can tell by the way that guy was dressed, or if you notice it, jacket on, face guard, gloves. It's cool. Yeah, this is just like Sunday. Same kind of little headwind. I rode this way a couple of times before. Came down this way, I believe, in the autumn. Leaves were still on the trees. I remember one or two times I came down this way. Just dead quiet, dead still, no wind. I mean, you come zipping along this road. Really pretty. Behind me. You know, whenever a truck goes by me like that, for just a few seconds you get that backdrafting where they just suck you along. It always reminds me of that old movie. I don't know if you guys ever seen it. It's called Breaking Away. It's about this college kid. Lives out in Indiana from a very blue-collar family. And he's into cycling. He's into Italian cyclists at the time. But there's a scene in the movie where he's literally up on the interstate drafting behind a big rig, and the big rig knows he's there and he's keeping track of his speed for him, And I don't know if it's physically possible or not, based on the gearing of the kid's bike. But the truck driver at one point indicates that he's doing 55 miles an hour riding behind the truck drafting. Thought that was pretty cool. That's why they call it River Road over there. We're going to stop here, take a breath, have a little water. Yeah, so that movie's called Breaking Away. Oh, I guess it came out in 1980 or something like that. It's quite old, but a fun movie to watch. Kind of a rite of passage movie.
Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you will subscribe to this channel. Subscribe by clicking that subscribe box you see just right there. And as always, your comments are welcome, so please feel free to post them. This is The Road Biker. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again soon.